Hello, I am Aditya, the host of the channel. Chapter 423, Aerial Fight 2. When he finally reached their location, Chin Luzi realized that his worries were not needed. With his sister-in-law's control over her ability, they were able to fight in midair as if on solid ground. Seeing that the two of them were not in danger, he was finally able to focus on clearing the zombie birds surrounding the chopper. While the three of them were fighting outside, the members stood at the door and started killing the zombie birds using their abilities. Following Chin Luzi's example, Gao Bohai used his ability to create a wind barrier to block the birds, leaving only a small opening on each side, facing the chopper doors so the members could use their abilities. As Zhang Yuan controlled the chopper and found a place for landing, Feng Yun stood behind the members, deep in thought. At the same time, Xiao Kai, Yu Feiyan, and Yin Yusheng were using their air guns to kill the zombie birds. Seeing that his brother was standing there in a daze, Xiao Kai asked, "Brother Feng Yun, what are you doing? Come and help us." Hearing his voice, Feng Yun's eyes flashed with determination, and he said, "Everyone, please step aside." While the members didn't know what he was trying to do, they still moved away. "Feng Yun, what are you trying to do?" Wenmo asked. "I want to see if it is possible for me to use a space blade and create a platform," Feng Yun replied. Recalling one of the anime scenes he watched before the apocalypse, an idea formed in his mind. Since it was possible for him to create a space crack, it should also be possible for him to create a separate dimension, similar to Kekai used in the anime. After a moment of thought, he raised his hands and channeled his ability energy into his palms. The next moment, a group of birds suddenly split in half, as if their bodies were cut with a sharp blade. Black blood and rotten flesh fell as the zombie birds let out sharp cries. Seeing this, Feng Yun narrowed his eyes and spread his hands. As soon as he did this, the members noticed a large energy fluctuation in the air. Before they could process what was going on, Feng Yun suddenly ran and jumped out of the chopper. Everyone was startled and shouted, "Feng Yun." They thought that he would fall or be killed by the zombie birds. Unexpectedly, none of that happened. They watched him stepping on air as if he were running on the ground. The zombie birds kept attacking him, but they couldn't even touch the hem of his shirt. It was as if there was a wall blocking all of their attacks. Seeing this, Feng Yun laughed and said, "I did it." Spreading out his hands, he smiled and added, "It's time to have fun." As soon as his words fell, the zombie birds suddenly crowded together. They continued to gather even though there was no longer space between them. Several minutes later, the zombie birds exploded due to the force, yet their black blood and rotten flesh were stuck in the air, unmoving. Standing at the door, Shen Jinj said, "This is the space dimension." "It's similar to the sealed space in those anime," Xiao Kai said with surprise. After killing the zombie birds surrounding the chopper, Feng Yun said, "Everyone, I can create a space blade for us to step on. Let's clear up these annoying birds." When everyone heard this, they nodded and joined him without hesitation. With the members joining the battle, they managed to kill all of the birds in less than an hour. As the last zombie birds were killed, everyone returned to the chopper. Chin Luzi held on to Jin Zuyan and Zhao Lijai as they flew back and joined the rest of the members. After everyone entered the military chopper, Zhang Yuan closed the doors and flew toward one of the highest buildings in Jinwu City. Spotting the helipad on the rooftop, he landed the chopper there and turned off the engine. Before they even stepped out of the military chopper, Chin Luzi noticed several green dots getting closer. As he slung his backpack on his shoulder, he said, "A group of ability users is coming." "Let's see who they are," Jin Zuyan said as he stepped out of the military chopper, followed by the members. When everyone came out of the chopper, Zhao Lijai waved her hand and stored it in her space. Standing beside her, Pei Yixi glanced at Fu Guari and said with a sigh, "Brother, you ate 5 large bowls of egg noodles before we left. Now you are hungry again. Are you hiding a dragon inside your stomach?" Hearing this, Fu Guari held her wrist and frowned. "I'm hungry, I want food." Meeting his sharp gaze and his annoying voice in her mind clamoring for food, Pei Yixi finally said, Okay, stop nagging. I will listen to you." Afterward, she pulled at Zhao Lijai's clothes and asked, "Sister-in-law, do you have anything convenient to eat? Brother Fu is hungry again." When she heard this, Zhao Lijai nodded and said, "I have some duck necks and chicken feet." As she said these words, she took out a box of duck necks and a box of braised chicken feet from her space. While handing the boxes to Pei Yixi, she added, "If he is hungry again, just let me know." Pei Yixi took the snacks and nodded. As ability users, it was normal for them to have bigger appetites compared to ordinary people. What's more, the stronger they were, the more prone to hunger they were. Based on how much Fuguari could eat, she guessed that he was at least at the same level as her. She handed the snacks to him and said, "If you are hungry again, just let my sister-in-law know." After taking the snacks, Fuguari quickly stored them in his backpack before he took out a pack of duck necks and started gnawing on them. Not long after, the door on the rooftop opened, and a group of people walked over, holding guns and rifles. The group stood 10 meters away from the Phantom team and observed them for a while before a man in his 30s said, "This building is ours. We don't want to harm you. You only need to pay us to leave this place." Hearing this, Shenjinj asked, "How much?" When the group heard this, they exchanged glances. Some of them eyed Zhao Lijai and Pei Yixi with lust in their eyes, while the rest of the group waited for their leader to make the decision. The man thought for a moment before he said, "Each of you has to pay 10 kilograms of rice if you want to leave." "You sure know how to dream in broad daylight," Pei Yixi said with a sneer. As soon as she said this, the group was angered. One of the men pointed at her and said, "Little girl, you better watch your words. If you continue acting arrogantly like this, don't blame me for not showing you mercy." Pei Yixi narrowed her eyes when she heard his words. The next moment, she pulled out a dagger given by Wenmo from her thigh and rushed toward the man. Before the man could react, she appeared in front of him. Without even giving him any chance to dodge or block her attack, she stabbed the dagger into the man's thigh. "Ack!" The man let out a shrill scream as his inner thigh was stabbed by her. "Duog, bam!" As she pulled out the dagger, she kicked him in the chest and sent him flying. The man collided with the wall before he fell to the ground. Blood stained his pants and the ground as he lay there in pain. "Bitch, how dare you attack my brother?" a man shouted and aimed his gun at her. When everyone thought that he would shoot her, Pei Yixi turned to him and met his gaze. The next moment, the man's body stiffened and his eyes widened in horror. While staring at him, her lips lifted and she said, "Go ahead, pull the trigger." Everyone was stunned as they watched the man aim the gun at his own head. His hand trembled and his face turned pale. From his eyes, everyone could see his fear. Please spare me," the man used all of his strength to utter the words. Hearing this, Pei Yixi smiled sweetly at him and said, "The most important lesson I learned in my entire life is to never leave the root of trouble behind. Today, we already formed a hostile relationship. You say if I let you go, will you never find me to avenge your humiliation today? The answer is no." Bang! As soon as she finished her words, the man pulled the trigger and shot himself in the head. Everyone was stunned by the situation, especially the group of ability users. In just a few minutes, they had lost one team member while another one was severely wounded. They thought that they could take advantage of these people. Unexpectedly, they kicked the iron plate today. The moment they reached this conclusion, the group's faces turned green with regret. Noticing this, Pei Yixi asked, "What, you still want to ask us to pay?" As soon as they heard this, the leader quickly said, "Comrade, it's a misunderstanding." Raising her eyebrows, she asked, "A misunderstanding?" The leader quickly nodded and replied, "We didn't mean anything, comrade. You and your friends are free to leave." Hearing this, Pei Yixi nodded and walked over to him. When she stood in front of him, she patted his shoulder, glanced at the dead body on the side and said, "Uncle, you are much smarter than that guy." Standing not far from her, the Phantom team members finally found the similarities between Pei Yixi and their captain. Both of them were scary when provoked. Since the other party had lost their fighting spirit, Jin Zuyin glanced at his watch and said, "Let's go, we have to reach the location before dark." With his words, the members nodded, and they followed him to the door. Before leaving, Mo Junji took a look at the group. The group was caught off guard and failed to mask their expressions and killing intent. Mo Junji narrowed his eyes when he noticed this. With a flick of his finger, a thin black mist seeped out from his fingertips and diluted with the air. As he closed the door, the black mist had already entered their bodies. Without electricity, they could only go down using the emergency stairs. When they reached the lobby, 30 minutes had passed. Zhao Lijai checked the road and noticed that the condition was worse than the capital. It would be troublesome to use cars. With this thought, she took out several motorbikes from her space. As the team left the area, Mo Junji glanced at the building's rooftop and smiled coldly. At the same time, the group of ability users on the rooftop suddenly felt burning pain in their internal organs. Before long, they started vomiting black blood as if they were poisoned. Noticing that something was wrong, the leader said, "We have been poisoned." One of their members was a healer, but even after he used all of his energy to repel the poison from his body, he was still unable to survive the poison. In less than 10 minutes, the group of people had turned into puddles of black blood. As the black mist dispersed, there was not even a trace left behind besides the dirtied clothes on the ground. Not noticing the gruesome death of the group, the Phantom team drove their motorbikes toward the weapon factory's location. Due to the damaged road and the zombies blocking the road, it took them 5 hours to reach the location. After parking their motorbikes, Chin Luzi said, "Captain, there are a lot of zombies inside. The rough amount might exceed 30,000. When they heard his words, Zhang Yuan frowned and said, "Captain, the information given by the Eagle team is wrong. Wei Weiying will never make this kind of mistake." As soon as he heard Zhang Yuan's words, Jin Zuyan frowned and said, "Be careful." Just after he said this, Chin Luzi said, "Captain, there are several high-level zombies on the rooftop of the tallest building." Rah, rah. As soon as he finished his words, they heard a series of roars coming from the distance. Before they could react, a swarm of zombies rushed toward them from several directions. Seeing this, the members pulled out their weapons and started killing the zombies. Pop, pop, pop. Crack, crack, crack. The sound of air guns was faintly heard as they pulled the trigger. In the midst of the zombies' roars, Jin Zuyan said, "Zhang Yuan, take care of the situation here. I will take care of the high-level zombie on the rooftop." Understood, Zhang Yuan replied as he raised his hand and used an earth wall to block the zombie's claws. Crack, crash. With the zombies blocked by him, Zhou Huajian's vines came from behind and whipped the zombies, severing their necks from their bodies instantly. Jin Zuyan glanced at his fiancée for a moment before he unsheathed his weapon and swung it horizontally. A fire blade flew from his longsword toward the zombies in front of him at a fast speed. Boom! The fire blade killed a large group of zombies and burned them into ashes instantly. After he cleared up the zombies, Jin Zuyan bent his knees slightly and leaped into the air. As he rushed toward the building, he killed the zombies, blocking his way with ease. Seeing this, Li Kixuan lowered his gaze for a moment before he followed after him. Noticing this, Mo Junji raised his eyebrows and followed suit. Standing not far from them, Fu Guari stared at their backs, and memories flashed in his mind. He felt a headache as he regained fragments of memories of his childhood. Holding his head, he found that Li Kixuan's back looked so familiar. Even though he couldn't recall who that person was, he was sure that he must have something to do with the facility. Thinking about how ruthless the facility was, he gritted his teeth to endure the pain in his head and followed them. As soon as he ran toward the building, Pei Yixi shouted, "Brother Fu, where are you going?" She was a space-type ability user and could only kill the zombies using weapons, so, even though she wanted to follow Fu Guari, she still held back and stayed with the team for safety reasons. Zhao Lijai noticed what had happened, but didn't follow her fiancé at all. She only gave them a meaningful glance before focusing on killing the zombies surrounding them. Noticing that Li Kixuan, Mo Junji and Fu Guari were following him, the corner of Jin Zuyan's lips lifted. It was time to find out Li Kixuan and Mo Junji's purpose for joining his team. After staying with them for a while, he knew that the two of them must have some relationship with the facility. He had long been suspicious of them and confirmed it during his confession about the facility to his team members. Both of them didn't show any surprise at all despite the shocking information. This proved that they had long known about the facility's existence. With Pei Yixi's help, he managed to learn that Mo Junji once worked as a researcher in a facility. His research focused on nanotechnology and DNA mutation. As for Li Kixuan, Pei Yixi was unable to read his mind at all, even with skin contact. While his mind was full of possibilities and guesses, he arrived at the building. Raising his head, he saw a tall zombie standing at the edge of the rooftop. Behind it stood 5 zombies with various deformities in their rotten bodies. Seeing this, Mo Junji covered his lips with his handkerchief and said, "These creatures are so ugly." Hearing his words, Li Kixuan let out a chuckle and replied, "They are just a bunch of corpses. What can you expect from a rotten corpse?" The two of them smiled while Fu Guari stared at them coldly. Half of his body was also a rotten body, so does he also look ugly? Before he regained his consciousness, he too was a walking dead. If not for his brother's help, he might have spent the rest of his life as the facility's puppet and worked for them until his rotten body was destroyed. The high-level zombie stared at them in silence while the zombies behind it let out a low growl of a beast. After a moment, the high-level zombie suddenly raised its head and let out a long roar. Roar! Unlike the previous roar that summoned the low-level zombies, this roar puts pressure on the ability users. Mojunji felt his blood surge, and blood trickled down from his pale lips. He used his handkerchief to wipe the blood. When he saw the red blood staining his white handkerchief, his eyes darkened and killing intent flashed in his pair of cold eyes. Following the roar, the zombies standing behind the high-level zombie raised their heads and let out an excited roar one after another. The next moment, their figures blurred and they disappeared from their location. Seeing this, Jin Zuyan raised his hand, and a wall of black flame erupted around them, creating a wall. Boom, booms, boom. Several fireballs, water blades, and tornadoes hit the wall and exploded. While the fireballs and water blades exploded upon impact, the tornadoes were engulfed by the black flame and added power to the fire barrier. As the fire became fiercer, several figures appeared from the fire barrier and rushed toward their direction at a fast speed. Seeing the incoming attack, Mojunji leaped back to dodge while Li Kixuan and Fu Guari met the attacks head-on. Booms, clang! Jin Zuyan glanced at Mojunji with narrowed eyes. According to his claim of being a weak person, it was impossible for him to react on time when facing a level 3 zombie's attack. Although he didn't meet the attack head-on, his speed and reaction were at least comparable to a level 3 ability user. The zombies attacking them were at least level 3 zombies. At this moment, besides Jin Zuyan, who was above level 3, the rest of them were at the same level as the zombies. Even with the same level, zombies were at least 50% stronger compared to the ability users. Therefore, Li Kixuan and Fu Guari didn't dare to let themselves be distracted when fighting. Due to this, they failed to notice Mojunji's agility. After being injured by the high-level zombies' pressure, Mojunji no longer had the leisure to become an observer. He was in constant pain due to his ability. Now adding the internal injuries he had just suffered, the pain intensified. Feeling irritated, he threw away his stained handkerchief and pulled out his dual daggers from the scabbards tied to his thighs. Since the moment he received this pair of daggers from Wenkai, this was the first time he used them. Holding onto the daggers, he sent his energy into them, and soon the glistening blades turned black as they were covered by a thin dark mist. Raw! A zombie that looked like a 12-year-old child with a massive right arm let out a roar and rushed toward him, baring its sharp teeth. Boom! Seeing the massive fist coming at him, Mojunji jumped to the side and dodged the attack. As the massive fist missed the target and hit the ground, a deep pit was created due to the force, and a cloud of dust floated in the air, obstructing their vision. As soon as Mojunji landed on the ground, he bent his knees and dashed toward the zombie. Despite the cloud of dust, he was still able to locate the zombie. Stab crash! Appearing behind the zombie, he swung his arms and one of his daggers stabbed at the zombie's nape. Raw! Even though the zombie didn't feel pain, being stabbed in its nape slowed down its movement and provoked its anger. The zombie let out a roar and turned its body, trying to swat away the annoying prey. Noticing the zombie's intention, Mojunji followed its movement and dodged its attack while twisting the dagger deeper. The next moment, he aimed the other dagger at the zombie's temple. Boom! Before the dagger stabbed the zombie's temple, a black fireball collided with a red fireball several meters away from him. The force of the explosion sent both him and the small zombie flying. Unwilling to lose the chance to finish off the zombie, Mojunji reached out and grabbed the zombie's rotten arm. As soon as he touched the zombie's arm, thick black mist seeped out from his palm and entered the zombie's body. In less than 10 seconds, the rotten arm melted and turned into a puddle of water. Disgusted by the stinky water staining his palm, he jumped back several meters the moment he touched the ground. With the cover of the dust and the intense battle they were facing, no one noticed what was going on this side. The small zombie was surprised when it found that its body was melting at a fast speed. Standing a few meters away from the zombie, Mojunji flicked his hand several times and muttered in a low voice with a frown, "What a hassle." Not long after he finished his words, the small zombie melted completely, leaving a piece of transparent crystal and a piece of green-colored crystal. Walking over, he picked his dagger and the crystals up before he sheathed his daggers and stored the crystal cores in his pocket. While he was fighting against the small zombie, Jin Zuyan, Li Kixuan, and Fu Guari were fighting the other 4 zombies. With their awkward yet good teamwork, they managed to kill the zombies not long after Mo Junji picked up the crystal cores. After Jin Zuyan burned the zombies with his flame, he turned to Li Kixuan and asked, "Who are you?" While they were staring at each other, Fu Guari went to pick up the crystal cores and stored them in his small pouch. Outside the fire barrier, zombies were rushing toward them. But thanks to it, before the zombies managed to reach their location, they had turned into ashes. Some level 2 zombies managed to walk past the fire barrier, but even so, they were only able to survive a few minutes longer. Standing not far from Jin Zuyan, Li Kixuan let out a chuckle and said, "Brother, you are so biased. You only remember Zyro Fu but forget about me." Hearing his words, Jin Zuyan frowned and said, "Li Kixuan, we never met before." "Is that so?" Li Kixuan said with raised eyebrows. Before Jin Zuyan could ask anything, he added in a low voice, "Zero, it's been a long time, I'm Wu Yi. Did you really forget about me?" The moment he heard this, faint memories resurfaced in Jin Zuyan's mind. He returned at the age of 22 after he died in his past life. When he came back, lots of his memories had become blurry. Besides his Aitg, team members, and Fu Guari, he hardly remembered any of the people he had met before. Now, hearing Li Kixuan calling him with that nickname finally brought him back to the moment he was still in the facility. On the day of his escape, there was indeed another person with him. When they managed to leave the facility, they were hunted down and forced to jump from the mountain cliff and fall into a waterfall. At that time, he was barely surviving even with his strength and ability. Therefore, he was sure that Wu Yi had already died. While countless thoughts spun in his mind, only a moment passed. He looked at the person in front of him and asked, "You are Subject 51. Li Kixuan smiled and said, "I prefer being called Kixuan." Now that he had found out the identity of Li Kixuan, Jin Zuyan asked, "Since you had left the facility and survived, why did you join my team? You knew clearly that I would find them sooner or later." "I also have an account to settle with them. It's easier for me to reach my goal if I work with you," Li Kixuan replied casually. Before Jin Zuyan could ask another question, Mo Junji interrupted them. "Can both of you save the talk for later? We are in the middle of a battle." As if agreeing with him, the high-level zombie suddenly leaped off the rooftop after it let out a roar and rushed toward their location. Knowing that it was not the right time, Jin Zuyan said, "We will talk about it later." With a wave of his hand, the black fire barrier turned into a ring of fire, expanding at a fast speed. The black flame ignited the moment it touched the zombies and burned them fiercely. When the high-level zombie appeared above them, the surrounding zombies had turned into piles of ashes. Seeing the thick metal spears flying toward them at a fast speed, Jin Zuyan said, "Dodge." The moment they heard this, everyone leaped in several directions, dodging the attack. Booms, 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 boom. As the metal spears pierced the ground, leaving countless cracks, Jin Zuyan flicked his hand and took back his black flame. The moment the black flame entered his body, a surge of energy entered his veins and recovered his energy instantly. In order to avoid getting injured from excessive energy absorption, Jin Zuyan used the energy and created countless black fire arrows. With a wave of his hand, the fire arrows flew toward the high-level zombie. Seeing the incoming attack, the zombie's red eyes flashed with surprise. It felt danger radiating from the attack. Boom, booms, boom. The moment before the fire arrows hit it, the high-level zombie jumped into the air and used the explosion force to dash toward Mo Junji. As a level 5 zombie, it had the intelligence equal to a 13-year-old child. When it felt danger, it would follow its instinct. It also knew that when hunting, the best way was to target the weakest prey first before killing the stronger ones. Noticing the zombie's intention, Jin Zuyan bent his knees and dashed toward Mo Junji. Clang's boom. In a blink of an eye, he appeared in front of him and blocked the zombie's attack. The collision between his longsword and the zombie's claws sent waves of energy to the surroundings. The impact of the energy wave due to the battle between 2 level 5 beings at a close distance was not something Li Kixuan, Fu Guari, and Mo Junji could handle. The 3 of them were sent flying by the force and hit the ground with a loud thud. Cough! Li Kixuan and Mo Junji spatted out a mouthful of blood, while Fu Guari frowned in pain. The energy waves not only injured them, but also killed the surrounding low-level zombies. Even Zhao Lijai and the members, who were fighting at a distance, could feel the impact of the collision. Wenmo and Zhang Yuan created a metal wall, an earth wall, to shield the members from the energy waves after they were hit by the first wave. Damn, what is going on over there? Xirokai exclaimed in surprise as he shielded his eyes using his arm. Qin Luzi checked the map in his hand and said, Captain is fighting against a high-level zombie. Judging from the impact of their battle, this zombie must be above level 4. The red dot on his map was almost 3 times bigger than the zombies surrounding them. He knew that the higher the level, the bigger the dot, but since he awakened his psychic-type ability, this was the first time he had seen a red dot of this size. Hearing his words, Zhao Lijai frowned and said, It's only 10 weeks after the apocalypse. How could a level 5 zombie already appear? At this moment, she was doubting the information she knew in her past life. Was it because she lived her life ignorantly that she didn't know the severity of the situation back then? Or was it because of her fiancé's rebirth that caused the change in this life? 3 years was not a short time for him to do something that caused the changes in this life. Despite her doubts and confusion, the fact that a level 5 zombie appeared in this place was undeniable. While everyone was in shock, Pei Yixi clasped her trembling hands tightly. They are here, she thought inwardly. Boom! Meanwhile, Jin Zuyan was kicked in the chest and collided with the ground, leaving a deep crack. The next moment, the zombie appeared above him and shot several metal spears toward him. Seeing this, he pushed himself up using his hands and flipped in midair, while sending several fireballs to intercept the attack. Boom, booms, boom. Thanks to the high temperature of his black flame, the metal spears melted and turned into a pool of metal liquid that fell to the ground before they managed to hit him. When he landed on the ground, the zombie's claws suddenly appeared in front of him. Jin Zuyan's eyes flashed with surprise as he bent his body back to dodge the attack and kicked the zombie's chin. Crack, boom. His kick shattered the zombie's chin and sent it flying. Finally able to take a breather, Jin Zuyan wiped the blood on his lips with the back of his hand while he muttered, Psychic and metal-type mutant zombie. As soon as he finished his words, the zombie had already launched another attack. This time, the number of metal spears was more than before. When he tried to dodge the attack, 2 metal wires tied around his ankles, trapping him on the spot. This is bad, he said with a frown. Boom, booms, boom. The metal spears hit him as soon as he finished his words. The attack created a thick cloud of dust and shook the ground. In the distance, Qin Luzi heaved a sigh of relief when he noticed 2 blue dots on his map disappear suddenly. At this moment, Zhao Lijai and Jin Zuyan appeared inside her space. When she saw his injuries, she quickly fed him a bottle of pond water and used her energy to heal his wounds. Feeling the slightly cold energy healing his body, Jin Zuyan said, Aitg, don't waste your energy. I'm fine, these are just small injuries. Zhao Lijai said nothing when she heard this. She didn't even give him a glance. Seeing her like this, Jin Zuyan knew that she was angry. As a wise man, he chose to shut up. After a moment, his wounds were healed, and he said, Aitg, we should leave now, or it will arouse people's suspicions. Taking a deep breath, Zhao Lijai calmed her fast-beating heart and said, Be careful. Okay, Jin Zuyan replied with a smile. Before the cloud of dust settled down, the 2 of them reappeared outside. As soon as they reappeared, Zhao Lijai placed her hand on the ground. In less than 5 seconds, thick ice covered the ground as it spread to the surroundings at a fast speed. Standing 30 meters away from them, the high-level zombie was caught off guard. Before it could react, its feet had frozen. Seeing this, the high-level zombie used its metal ability to cover its feet and shattered the ice. But as soon as the ice was shattered, a new layer of ice covered its feet again, rendering it unable to move. While Zhao Lijai lacked the strength to kill the zombie, she was able to provide support to help her fiancé. After the training she did by filling up the dam and water reservoir in the Linen City base, the amount of her energy was enough to deal with this zombie. Noticing her intentions, Jin Zuyan held his longsword tightly and dashed toward the zombie. As he leaped in midair, he swung his sword twice. In order not to melt the ice trapping the zombie, he didn't use his black flame and depended solely on his raw strength. Clang, clang. The energy waves flew toward the zombie at a fast speed, aiming at its head. But before they could hit the target, the high-level zombie raised its arms, covered with metal, and blocked the attack. Crack, boom. The next moment, a lightning bolt descended from the sky and hit the zombie directly, shattering its arm instantly. Raw. The zombie let out an angry roar when it saw its arms had turned into ashes. Jin Zuyan was surprised when he saw the color of the lightning. The highest grade of lightning known by the masses in his previous life was indigo. While some people claimed to have witnessed someone possessing silver-purple lightning, no one believed the rumors. After all, that was the legendary grade of the lightning-type ability. Thinking about Li Kixuan's words, it seemed that this lightning bolt was his, and was the result of the facility's experiment. Despite countless thoughts flashing through his mind, only several seconds had passed. Roar! The zombie let out another roar. As soon as the low-level zombies heard the roar, they changed their direction and rushed toward Jin Zuyan instead. Noticing this, Qin Luzi said, "This is bad. They are attacking the captain and sister-in-law." When they heard this, the members rushed over instantly. Qin Luzi leaped into the air and flew toward Jin Zuyan's direction. As he floated in midair, he snapped his fingers. Boom, booms, boom. Countless explosions were heard as he combined the atoms in the air and killed group after group of zombies. Soon after, Wen Kai and Wen Mo arrived and built a wall to block the low-level zombies. After the wall was built, the members arrived one after another and started killing the zombies outside the wall. Inside the wall, the high-level zombie was engaged in an intense battle against Jin Zuyan, Zhao Lijai, Li Kixuan, and Fu Guari. As for Mo Junji, his ability was not suitable to face the high-level zombie, so he joined the rest of the members to kill the low-level zombies with his airguns. Inside the wall, Zhao Lijai went to Li Kixuan's location and said, "Brother Lei, let's cooperate. I will use my water as a medium to increase your lightning power." Wash tilde boom. Just after she finished her words, a blue fire tornado suddenly appeared and killed a large group of zombies. Turning his head, Li Kixuan saw Shen Jinj controlling the fire tornado, while Gao Bohai continued creating more tornadoes to add more power into the fire tornado. After a moment of hesitation, he nodded and said, "Okay." As soon as they reached an agreement, he waved his hand and several lightning spears appeared in front of him. With another wave of his hand, the lightning spears flew toward the high-level zombie, aiming at its nape. Seeing this, Zhao Lijai flicked her hands and several water blades flew toward the zombie, chasing after the lightning spears. Duog clang. At this moment, Fu Guari was hit by the zombie and was sent flying more than 20 meters away. As for Jin Zuyan, he was pushed back several meters after blocking the zombie's attack. Boom, crack, crack. The next moment, the water blades collided with the lightning spears and combined together. At first, Li Kixuan thought that he would be the one to take control, but after both of their attacks combined into one, he realized that his lightning was absorbed by the water blades instead. His eyes widened in shock at this situation. Logically speaking, with his level above Zhao Lijai's, his lightning spears should have overpowered her water blades instead, making it impossible for her to absorb his power. In the facility, they did training to improve their teamwork, and one of the training was combined attacks, similar to the method used by the Phantom team members right now. In those years, there was never once a lower-level ability user able to control the higher-level ability user's attack at all. Narrowing his eyes, Li Kixuan stared at her and thought, "Is she also someone from the facility?" Not knowing that someone was overthinking, Zhao Lijai's forehead was covered with a thin layer of cold sweat as she tried her best to control her water blades. She never expected Li Kixuan to suddenly lose control of his lightning. Even with her absorption skill, it was still hard for Zhao Lijai to control Li Kixuan's energy. From this, she was sure that his level was at least level 3, if not more. Adding to that his domineering type of ability, it took her twice the effort compared to when she absorbed Pei Yijun's lightning. Crack, crash. Sensing the danger, the high-level zombie used its energy to cover its body with a layer of metal and dodge the attack. But even with a thick layer of metal protecting its body, the water blades covered with silver-purple lightning still managed to cut through the metal and leave a deep wound on its shoulder. Black blood spurted out from the wound as a rancid stench thickened in the air. Raw. Following the roar, the wound on the zombie's body soon recovered at a speed visible to the naked eye. Seeing this, surprise flashed in Fu Guari's eyes. Turning his head, he observed the water blades covered in lightning for a while before he focused his energy into his nails. The next moment, lightning covered his sharp, long nails. While Zhao Lijai continued attacking the zombie from a distance, Fu Guari and Jin Zuyan dashed toward it and engaged in close combat. The battle lasted for almost an hour before Fuguari managed to stab the high-level zombies back using his sharp nails. With his hand piercing the rotten body, he grabbed the zombie's spine, disabling its movement. Noticing the chance, Jin Zuyin swung his sword horizontally. At the same time, Zhao Lijai froze the zombie's body. Without its arms to block the attack, the longsword covered with black flame finally managed to sever the zombie's head. As the zombie's head rolled to the ground, Fuguari pulled out his hand and crushed the spine he took from the zombie's body. Before the body hit the ground, it was engulfed by the black flame and turned into ashes. After an hour of intense battle, Fuguari's body was full of wounds, but he didn't even flinch when he picked up the zombie's head and used his nails to split open the back of the head. As soon as the head was torn, they found 3 crystal cores inside. Seeing this, Jin Zuyin exchanged glances with him. "They must realize that something went wrong and sent one of the elders to search for you," he said. Fuguari nodded and destroyed the chip planted in the zombie's brain. After they were done, Jin Zuyin went to check on Li Kixuan and his fiancée's condition. Since the two of them fought from a distance, they didn't suffer heavy injuries like Fuguari. After some rest and absorbing some crystal cores to recover, they joined the members to clear the rest of the zombies. Standing at the top of the wall, Jin Zuyin looked at the sea of zombies and frowned. As he sent countless black fireballs to burn the zombies' corpses piling up under the wall, he said, "Everyone, finish this battle in 2 hours. It seems that something happened to the Eagle team." "Understood," the members replied in unison. Less than 2 hours later, they managed to kill the last zombies. Since the time was limited, they decided to burn the corpses instead of storing them in Feng Yun's space. While the members were clearing up the battleground, Jin Zuyin walked toward Li Kixuan and said, "You can tell me your true purpose in joining my team now." Hearing this, Li Kixuan finished the water before he said, "Zero, on the day you escaped from the facility, I was arrested and taken back. In 6 months, they opened a hole in my head and didn't use anesthesia when they conducted the surgery. At that time, I wished that I had died after falling into the waterfall." Jin Zuyin lowered his gaze to hide his shock when he heard this. He knew that the facility was ruthless and cruel, but he never expected them to reach this level just to punish a test subject who ran away. After a moment of silence, Li Kixuan added, "If not for my desire for revenge, I wouldn't have been able to hold on until the facility was attacked. Due to my weakened state, I was abandoned, which was a blessing in disguise for me." Hearing this, Jin Zuyin asked, "Do you know who attacked the facility?" Li Kixuan shook his head and replied, "I don't know. After the facility was attacked, I was taken away. When I woke up, I found myself in the hospital and was found by my family." "So you want to destroy the facility and get your revenge?" Jin Zuyin asked. "Zero, before you left that year, you promised us that you would return to save us. Do you still remember?" Li Kixuan asked him back. When he heard this, Jin Zuyin finally recalled that he once did make such a promise. He nodded and said, "I do. I want to go back and save our brothers. You know it's impossible for you or me alone to defeat the facility, but I believe with your team, we will be able to do so. That's the reason why I want to join your team." Jin Zuyin stared at him for a while before he said, "Li Kixuan, I don't trust you." Li Kixuan let out a chuckle at his words and replied, "I know you won't trust me." After he said this, he took off one of his rings and threw it to Jin Zuyin while saying, "This is a space ring developed by my company. Inside are the data I gathered all these years regarding the facility." Jin Zuyin raised his eyebrows when he heard this and asked, "How do you use this ring?" "Drip your blood on the ring to overwrite my command. As long as your innate talent is higher than mine, you can use the space ring. If you can't even use the ring, there is no point in me cooperating with you," Li Kixuan said casually. Hearing this, Jin Zuyin made a cut on his thumb using his nail and smeared his blood on the ring. The next moment, he felt his mind buzzing and something connected to his brain. A second later, he saw a transparent screen in front of him. The screen was similar to the VR game interface. After a moment, he said, "So this is how you use the space ring. Interesting. Now that I've given you all the information I have, can you trust me now?" Li Kixuan asked. Using his mind, Jin Zuyin closed the interface and replied, "For now, you can stay with the team. If one day you betray the team, I will kill you with my own hands." "Okay," Li Kixuan nodded with a smile. After the Phantom team finished burning the zombies' corpses and picking up the scattered crystal cores, they went to the warehouse area. While they were busy clearing up the zombies in the factory, a large battle took place 50 kilometers from their locations. Crack, boom, boom, boom. Countless lightning bolts descended from the sky and struck the metal poles around a large group of zombies. As the lightning bolts continued to hit the metal poles, the power of the strikes increased, turning the zombies' rotten flesh into crispy flakes that crumbled at a touch. Not far from the area, a massive dome-shaped structure made from soil trapped another large group of zombies inside. Standing on top of a rooftop, a young man raised his hand while yawning. The next moment, smoke rose from the chimney at the top of the dome. Inside, blue fire raged like a volcanic eruption, burning the zombies into ashes, drowning the roars into nothing. While the zombies were being exterminated, Cheng Rui turned to his brother and said, "Yue, it's boring to do this every day. I heard there's a base in Linen's city. How about we go there and take a look?" Standing not far from him, Cheng Yue waved his hand, and the massive dome collapsed into a sandstorm. The sandstorm moved toward the zombies in the distance, pushing them toward the metal poles. Seeing another batch of prey enter his area, Cheng Rui raised his hand and waved them down. Crack, boom, boom, boom. Soon after, one lightning bolt after another hit the metal poles, creating a dense lightning net that burned the zombies. Half an hour later, the zombies within a 2-kilometer radius were dead, and the Cheng brothers finally leaped down from the rooftop. Looking at the scattered crystal cores, Cheng Rui let out a sigh and said, "Look at this mess. If you had listened to me and let that space-type ability user join us, we wouldn't have to bother picking these crystals ourselves." Hearing his brother's words, Cheng Yue gave him a side glance and said, "If you like being stalked by that crazy woman, you can enjoy it yourself. Don't drag me with you." After saying this, he waved his hand, and the sand gathered, forming a thin wall. Controlling the sand, he pushed the scattered crystals into one place. 20 minutes later, he walked over and put all the crystals into his backpack. "I'm hungry, let's find a place to rest," he said. Cheng Rui checked the map in his hand for a moment before saying, "Yue, there's a weapon factory in this city, not far from here. How about we go there and have a look? Rather than walking, it's more fun to get a helicopter." Hearing this, Cheng Yue shrugged and said, "Up to you." With that, the two of them rushed toward the Gu family's weapon factory. 2 hours later, the two of them arrived outside the factory. Hearing the faint sound of fighting coming from the factory, Cheng Rui's eyes lit up as he said, "Yue, someone is here. Let's go and take a look." Pulled by his brother, Cheng Yue could only let out a sigh and say, "You are noisier than an old man." Ignoring his brother's remark, Cheng Rui pulled him toward the source of the sound. As they went over, he looked around and noticed that the zombies in the area were nowhere to be seen. He looked at the cracks and pits on the ground and narrowed his eyes. From the information he gathered before coming to this city, there should be a high-level zombie guarding this place. This time, they came to get that zombie's crystal core. He had reached his limit and would soon be able to break through to the next level. If they were able to get the high-level metal crystal core, his chance of breaking through would be above 70%. Judging from the signs of battle, it seemed that the high-level zombie had been killed. The one who killed it must be the group fighting in the distance. When he thought he had missed the chance to get the crystal core, Cheng Rui felt annoyed. Noticing his brother's bad mood, Cheng Yue asked, "What's wrong?" "We are too late. That group killed the high-level zombie and got the crystal core." As soon as he heard this, Cheng Yue understood his brother's meaning. After a moment of silence, he asked, "What do you plan next?" The two of them had specifically come to this city to get the crystal core, so letting it go just because they were late was out of the question. "Let's check their strength first before we make a decision," Cheng Rui replied. Not long after, the two of them finally arrived at the warehouse area. To see the situation more clearly, they climbed a tree and leaped to the nearest building. Standing on the rooftop, they finally saw the battle situation. At first, they were curious as to why there were no zombies attracted to them, even when they were so close to the battleground. Now, looking at the metal wall blocking the zombies, they finally understood. With such a massive wall, it was impossible for the zombies to slip away and be attracted by their scents. While they were watching the battle, Chin Luzi suddenly turned around and stared in their direction. Chin Luzi's sudden stare startled the Cheng brothers. Without them noticing, their backs were covered in cold sweat as they felt a sharp, cold-killing intent directed at them. The stare only lasted for several seconds, but Cheng Rui had already made up his mind not to mess with the group. it's better to try exchanging the crystal core. Turning to look at his brother, he said, Rua, if we use supplies or low-level crystal cores to exchange for that high-level crystal core, do you think they will agree to it? Cheng Yue frowned and said, judging from their strength, those people should be level 1 ability users. Only the one with black flame, silver purple thunder, and strength type will be able to use the crystal core, but their elements aren't compatible. It's better to use a low-level crystal core with compatible elements, he added. Hearing his brother's analysis, Cheng Rui nodded in agreement and said, so the chance of them agreeing is high. After a moment of pause, Cheng Yue replied, that might not be the case. Why do you say so? Cheng Rui asked. Glancing at his brother, Cheng Yue asked him back, didn't you see how easily they cleared the zombies? Even though crystal cores are hard to come by, with how many zombies they killed, they would be able to get at least hundreds of crystal cores, if not thousands. With so many crystal cores, there is no need to exchange a rare high-level crystal core with low-level crystal cores at all, he explained. While the two of them were analyzing the situation, Chin Luzi turned to his captain and said, there are 2 ability users on the rooftop of the building at 8 o'clock. Hearing this, the Phantom team members turned their heads to take a look. Thanks to their advancement, their eyesight had improved, and it wasn't hard for them to notice 2 figures standing on the rooftop. While they couldn't see their features clearly, it was easy for them to discern that the newcomers were men. Pei Yixi looked at her brother and asked, brother, how about I go there and see what they want? Jin Zuyan glanced at her for a moment before he said, avoid any unnecessary dispute. When she heard this, Pei Yixi nodded and said, understood. As soon as she finished her words, she leaped from the wall and dashed toward the direction of the newcomers. Seeing this, Fu Guari hesitated for a moment before he followed after her. When Cheng Rui and Cheng Yue saw 2 people coming in their direction, they exchanged glances and leaped down from the rooftop. Not long after, they saw a young woman and a man standing 20 meters away from them. Pei Yixi stared at them without blinking, and soon she heard their inner voices. This sister looks pretty, but she looks like a fool. I wonder if I can trick her into giving me that high-level crystal core. I smell braised duck necks coming from that man. I'm hungry. After she listened to their thoughts for a moment, she was sure that these 2 people were at most level 2 ability users. From one of them, she knew that their target was the high-level crystal core her brother had gotten. Being stared at so intently by her, Cheng Rui smiled and said teasingly, sister, you seem to like our looks. How about taking us back to accompany your lonely night? When he heard these words, Fu Guari frowned and glanced at Pei Yixi. Seeing how calm she was, he clenched his fists and retracted his sharp nails. Pei Yixi smiled at his words and said, using honey traps on me is useless. This place is taken by my team. Both of you should leave. Noticing the threat in her tone, Cheng Rui raised his hands and said, my brother and I have no intention of competing with you and your team. We only want to get some weapons and a vehicle. After we get what we want, we will leave. Pei Yixi narrowed her eyes for a while before she smiled and said, all right then. Hearing how easily she agreed, not only Cheng Rui and Cheng Yue were taken aback, even Fu Guari looked at her with a questioning gaze. He reached out to hold her hand and asked, what are you planning to do? Pei Yixi leaned closer to him and whispered, these 2 are only at level 2 at most. They came for the high-level zombies' crystal core and won't leave. Rather than letting them lurk in the dark, it's better to watch them closely. After she said this, she turned to the Cheng brothers and said, both of you follow me. Seeing them coming back so fast, Zyro Kai asked, Sister Pei, why did you bring them with you? Pei Yixi shook her head and went to find her brother. Brother, they want to get some weapons and will leave afterward. When he heard this, Jin Zuyan looked at the Cheng brothers and was stunned. Compared to the time he saw them in his previous life, both of them looked much younger and more spirited now. After a moment, he regained his composure and nodded. If you want to get the weapons, you can wait until we are done. No problem, Cheng Rui agreed readily. The 2 of them watched the Phantom team kill the zombies for a moment before they sat on the edge of the metal wall. Standing not far from them, Zhao Lijai kept taking peeks at them, with astonishment clear in her eyes. She never expected to meet her friends from the past so soon in this life. Recalling their appearances in the past, she couldn't connect the 2 young, handsome men with her friends at all. After a moment of astonishment, she noticed the Cheng brothers rubbing their stomachs pitifully. Out of her feelings toward them as teammates, she stopped killing the zombies and walked over to them. Standing in front of them, Zhao Lijai took out several boxes of self-heating lunch boxes from her space and several bottles of mineral water. She placed the food and water down and said, "If you are hungry, you can have this first." Cheng Yui's eyes lit up the moment he saw the food. Without hesitation, he took one lunch box and opened it. Afterward, he took out several crystal cores from his backpack and handed them to Zhao Lijai while saying, "Payment for the food and water." Knowing that they hated owing people favors, Zhao Lijai accepted the crystal cores before she rejoined her team and continued killing the zombies. When the sun was setting on the western horizon, the Phantom team finally killed the last zombie in the factory. After everyone came down from the top of the wall, Wenmo turned the wall into metal bullets, which were stored by Feng Yun in his space. Standing not far from them, Cheng Rui nudged his brother and said, "Yue, this team is very strong. Even though most of them are unable to defeat us, their teamwork is top-notch." Noticing the hidden meaning of his brother's words, Cheng Yue raised his eyebrows and asked, "What, you want to join them?" Leaning closer to him, Cheng Rui asked, "Do you notice that this team has 2 space-type ability users? Since they have 2 storage spaces, they should have a lot of supplies. If we follow them, isn't it easier for us to buy supplies from them? We don't have to trouble ourselves to kill so many zombies just to get several days of supplies." Hearing this, Cheng Yue was moved. He was someone who wouldn't sit if he could lie down. If possible, he wished to lie in bed the whole day without doing anything besides eating and sleeping. His brother's suggestion was aligned with his heart's desire. After considering the pros and cons, he said, "If they agree, I have no objection." When he heard his brother's words, Cheng Rui smiled and said, "You can leave this matter to me. With my charm, this matter can be considered done." Not long after they finished their conversation, Pei Yixi had already informed Jin Zuyan about their intentions. Hearing this, he thought for a moment and said, "Keep an eye on them." "Brother, I understand," Pei Yixi nodded. Not long after, Cheng Rui walked over and said, "Brothers, I want to talk with your leader." When the members heard this, they only gave him a glance and continued with what they were doing. Seeing that he was being ignored, Cheng Rui was not angry. He stood there and observed the situation. After a while, he walked toward Zhang Yuan and asked, "Brother, are you the leader of this team?" Zhang Yuan nodded and said, "Comrade, you can pick some weapons first. We have cleared the zombies in this area. When you are done, you can leave." "Brother, I wonder if you met a high-level zombie here," Cheng Rui said. As soon as he heard this, Zhang Yuan finally stopped what he was doing and asked, "Comrade, why do you ask about this?" "My brother and I heard that a metal-type high-level zombie was spotted here. Both of us are mercenaries, and we took a mission to get the crystal core. If you spotted the zombie, can you tell us its location?" Cheng Rui asked. When he heard his words, Zhang Yuan observed him in silence for a moment before he said, "I don't know about the zombie you are talking about." Cheng Rui stared at him for a moment before he let out a chuckle and said, "Brother, I know your team is the one who killed that zombie. I only want the crystal core and am willing to exchange it using my crystal cores." After he said this, he opened his backpack to show the crystal cores inside to Zhang Yuan. Seeing the number of crystal cores in the backpack, Zhang Yuan's eyes flashed with surprise. For a mercenary to possess so many crystal cores showed how strong and hardworking they were. Before he could reject or accept the offer, Jin Zuyan walked over and said, "My team doesn't need low-level crystal cores." When he heard this, Cheng Rui was 100% sure that the one who killed the high-level zombie was the man in front of him. Unlike the other Phantom team members, he felt a lot of pressure when he faced him. Taking a deep breath, he resisted the pressure and said, "Brother, I can exchange 5,000 level 1 crystal cores for that crystal core. This is not a bad deal, right?" With his hand in his pocket, Jin Zuyan smiled and replied, "You want to exchange a level 5 metal crystal core with just that amount? You really know how to take advantage of others." As soon as he heard his words, Cheng Rui's eyes widened in shock. It took him a while to regain his composure and say, "Level 5. Brother, you must be kidding. The information we got only said that this zombie was at most a level 3 zombie." Soon after he said this, Zhao Lijai walked over and said, "Comrade, if you only want a level 3 metal-type crystal core, my team has it. You can exchange it for 5,000 level 1 crystal cores." As she said this, she took out a golden-colored crystal core from her pocket and showed it to him. Looking at the crystal core, Cheng Rui frowned and reached out to take it. He checked the crystal core for a moment before he realized that, although this was indeed a level 3 crystal core, the color was clearer and brighter. It was as if the amount of energy contained by this crystal was higher, and there were no impurities at all. After a moment, he felt a trace of warm energy seeping into his body. Realizing what was going on, surprise flashed in Cheng Rui's eyes. Normally, he needed to spend lots of effort to absorb the energy from crystal cores, but with this one, he didn't even do anything, and the energy entered his body so easily. If he used this crystal core and attempted a breakthrough, he could get the same result with half the effort. When Cheng Rui reached this conclusion, he no longer hesitated and said, "Sister, I want this crystal core." Zhao Lijai nodded and said, "No problem." Since the two of them were strangers, they counted the crystal cores on the spot. 20 minutes later, Cheng Rui handed 5,000 level 1 crystal cores to her and received a level 3 metal crystal core. When they finished the transaction, Cheng Yue had already returned with 2 rifles and 2 handguns. He took some ammo and an armored car. Because the Phantom team took this place first, they couldn't take the military chopper and could only settle for the best they could get. Noticing his brother's excitement, he asked, Rui, are you done?" Cheng Rui nodded and said, Yue, it's already dark. How about we spend the night here?" "Okay." After Feng Yun and Xiao Kai stored the weapons in their spaces, Zhao Lijai stored the rest in her space. Since the warehouse was too big, they decided to spend the night in the office building. Unlike the other areas, this place had no sign of fighting. After more than 2 months, the floor was covered with a thick layer of dust. With a wave of his hand, Qin Luzi created a small tornado that sucked all the dust and threw it out. Afterward, Chen Kai and Feng created a water ball to wash the floor. When he was done, Shen Jinj created 2 small blue flames and used them to dry the wet floor. It only took them half an hour to clean up an entire floor. Then, Zhao Lijai collected everything in the office before she took out several bunk beds from her space, complete with pillows and blankets, setting up a sleeping quarter. Standing at the entrance, Cheng Rui and Cheng Yue exchanged a glance. It seemed that this team really knew how to enjoy life. Having a space-type ability user in the team was indeed convenient. They could even bring their own beds and pillows. Noticing them standing unmoving at the door, Gao Bohai said, "Little brothers, come in, don't stand at the door." When they walked over, he patted their shoulders and said, "Since we met here, it means we are fated. Don't be shy with us." After he said this, Li Sikai added, "The 2 of you can stay with us tonight and use these beds." The moment Cheng Yue heard this, he walked to the bed and said, "Thank you." He placed his backpack down and lay on the bed without showing the slightest sign of shyness or hesitation. As soon as his head touched the pillow, he let out a sigh and closed his eyes. In less than 2 minutes, they heard soft snoring coming from him. Seeing this, everyone was dumbfounded. Not to mention that they were in the apocalypse. Even during the peaceful era, no one would be able to sleep so easily when so many strangers were present. Unexpectedly, this person could fall asleep just like that. This could be counted as a talent. Noticing everyone's gaze on his brother, Cheng Rui coughed and explained, "We haven't had a good sleep for a long time." When the members heard this, they nodded in understanding. Not everyone was as fortunate as them to be able to have a good sleep and a good meal. Zhao Lijai glanced at Cheng Yue and smiled. Even though he looked like someone who could sleep anywhere and anytime, his vigilance was better than Cheng Rui's. He would wake up the moment someone got close to him. While Cheng Yue was sleeping, Xiao Kai took out 2 big metal basins from his space, and Chen Kai and Feng filled up the basins with water. After Zhang Yuan created a wall to divide the office, the members went to take their baths. At the same time, Zhao Lijai took out several big pots, stoves, 10 packs of frozen dumplings, 2 packs of dried vegetables, 2 packs of sausages, and 20 packs of noodles from her space. Then she filled half of the pots with water and mixed in some pond water. When the water was boiled, she put the ingredients in. After she added some seasonings, the aroma filled the air. Before the members finished their baths, Cheng Yue suddenly opened his eyes and walked over. He took a seat beside her and asked, "Can I buy a bowl of noodles?" Hearing this, Zhao Lijai smiled and said, "Sure, a crystal core for a bowl." Nodding at her words, Cheng Yue took out some crystal cores from his backpack and said, "Give me 5 bowls first." Zhao Lijai accepted the crystal cores and took out a large basin from her space. She scooped 5 big ladles of noodles and added 10 dumplings and 5 sausages before handing it to him. Looking at the generous portion, Cheng Yue was satisfied. Using the chopsticks handed to him by Zhao Lijai, he started eating. Not long after, the members finally finished and joined them for dinner. Sitting across from them, Pei Yixi would stare at the Cheng brothers once in a while. Compared to Cheng Rui, whose thoughts were so random that she could hardly follow them, Cheng Yue's head was filled with food and how to laze around. After dinner, the members took turns standing guard while Pei Yixi went to find Jin Zuyan. Seeing her coming, Jin Zuyan asked, "How is it?" Taking a seat beside him, Pei Yixi replied, "Brother, the one called Yue only thought about food and how to sleep more. As for the other one, he wants to follow us." "Do you know what their reason is?" Jin Zuyan asked. Shaking her head, Pei Yixi said, "So far, I have only found out that they want to follow us because we have supplies, and it would be easier for them to buy supplies from us." Hearing this, Jin Zuyan thought for a moment and said, "For now, just let them be. Tomorrow we will go to the border area. By then, they won't be able to follow us even if they want to." "Okay," Pei Yixi nodded and returned to her bed. As the night deepened, everyone had already gone to sleep, leaving only two of the members to stand guard. As for Zhao Lijai and Jin Zuyan, the two of them went out for a walk before they entered her space. Inside her space, they took a bath and changed their clothes before they reappeared outside. Instead of returning to the office building, they went to the rooftop and sat at the edge of the building. Raising her head, Zhao Lijai stared at the red moon and said, "Brother Yan, do you think this apocalypse will end one day?" Thinking about the decades he had spent in pain, hatred, and anger in his previous life, Jin Zuyan replied, "It will." Whether the apocalypse ended because humanity found the cure or because of destruction, the apocalypse would definitely end. Turning to look at her fiancé, Zhao Lijai smiled and asked, "Brother Yan, how can you be so sure? Did you live until the day the apocalypse ended?" Hearing this, Jin Zuyan looked into the distance and replied softly, "MHM." Zhao Lijai couldn't imagine how the apocalypse ended in her previous life, but she was sure that the survivors would restore the world and life would get better and better. The two of them sat on the rooftop for a long time, each lost in their own thoughts. Only after it was 2 o'clock in the morning did they return to the office and get some sleep. Early the next morning, the Phantom team members woke up before sunrise. After they did their morning exercise, washed up, and had their breakfast, they prepared to leave the weapon factory. When Cheng Rui and Cheng Yue woke up, the Phantom team had already boarded the military chopper. Seeing this, Cheng Rui quickly walked to them and asked, "Brother, are you leaving already?" Being pulled by him, Zyro Kai nodded and said, "My team still has another mission to do. We are leaving this city." "Brother, can we join you?" Cheng Rui asked. Scratching his head, Zyro Kai looked at his members before he replied, "Brother, we are on a mission. Sorry." Knowing that it was impossible to follow them, Cheng Rui asked again, "Brother, where are you going?" "I can't tell you that," Zyro Kai said, shaking his head. "Then you can at least tell me where you live, right?" Seeing how insistent he was, Zyro Kai finally said, "We live at the Linen City base. Brother, if you have nowhere to go, you can visit the base." After he said this, Chin Luzi said, "Zyro Kai, let's go." Coming. Turning to him, Zyro Kai said, "Brother, I need to go now. If we are fated, let's have a meal another time." When he finished speaking, he quickly boarded the chopper. Not long after, Cheng Rui watched the military chopper take off and fly away. Walking out of the office building, Cheng Yue yawned and said, "Now that they have already left, what's your plan?" Taking out the level 3 crystal core from his pocket, Cheng Rui said, "I will try breaking through first, then let's visit the Linen City base." Okay. At the same time, inside the military chopper, Zyro Kai looked at Zhao Lijai and asked, "Sister-in-law, how did you know that he would find me and not others?" Intuition, Zhao Lijai replied with a smile. After years of interaction as their teammate in her previous life, she knew that Cheng Rui was someone who would target soft-hearted or easygoing people. In the Phantom team, the most easygoing person was Zyro Kai. Adding his friendly and chatty personality, he would be the first option that Cheng Rui picked. After letting out a soft "oh," Zyro Kai asked again, "Sister-in-law, since the two of them approached us with bad intentions, why did you still send them to the base? What if they made trouble?" Hearing this, Zhao Lijai went silent for a moment before she replied. While the two of them were opportunistic and liked to take advantage of others, they were strong and would become a great asset for the base. "You wanted Commander Zun to recruit them?" Li Kixuan asked. Zhao Lijai nodded and replied, "If possible, it was best if Zun Qi could recruit them." After she said this, she went silent and became lost in her thoughts. Seeing this, no one disturbed her anymore. In her previous life, both Cheng Rui and Cheng Yue had joined the team 6 months after her. Her team had found them severely injured by mutant animals. Although they had managed to save their lives, Cheng Rui had lost one of his arms and both his legs. Thanks to his metal-type ability, he had been able to walk again after creating legs and an arm using his metal. As for Cheng Yue, he had lost his eyesight and spent the rest of his life in darkness. If possible, she hoped that the two of them could avoid their tragic fate in this life. 2 hours later, the sun had risen on the eastern horizon, and they reached the border of Liang City. Unlike other cities, an unknown mineral had been found in the underground mine a few years ago. The government had conducted research to check the mineral's components, but after several years, there were still no results. Now, with Wen Kai and Wen Mo having become metal-type ability users, Zun Qi hoped that the two of them would be able to find out the components of the mineral and use it to create weapons. When Zhang Yuan saw the compound built near the underground mine, he said, "We are here." As the military chopper flew closer to the compound, the members looked through the windows and saw the desolated building. "It's so strange, there is no trace of zombies at all," Qin Luzi muttered in a low voice. Hearing this, Yu Faiyan said, "Brother Qin, isn't it good that there are no zombies in this area? We can finish our mission faster." Unless it's an abandoned mine, there are usually people in the compound. Without any trace of zombies, it means that the residents had already left this place before the apocalypse started, Li Sikai explained. "Old Qin, is there any trace of survivors?" Zhang Yuan asked. Qin Luzi checked his map for a while before he said, "There is no trace of survivors either." Despite seeing no sign of zombies or survivors on his map, he still felt that something dangerous was lurking in the area, waiting for them to fall into a trap. Zhang Yuan hovered above the compound for a while before he landed on the open field between the compound and the underground mine. After everyone came out of the military chopper, Zhao Lijai stored it in her space. As soon as they stepped into the underground mine, Jin Zuyan raised his hand and said, "Everyone, be careful." Opening his palm, he created a ball of flame. This time, he lowered its temperature, and the black flame changed into a bright yellow flame. With the flame illuminating the narrow path, the members followed him. Standing at the end of the group, Shen Jinj used his flame to light the surroundings. With Wen Mo and Wen Kai in the middle, they would be able to react promptly to defend the members if they were suddenly attacked. As the Phantom team walked further into the underground mine, the air became thinner and more suffocating. Zhao Lijai looked around as they walked. When she stepped on something squishy, she stopped in her tracks and lowered her head. Taking out a flashlight from her space, she shone it on the thing under her shoes. As she moved her foot, she saw that the black, sticky liquid squirmed for a moment. If it had been anyone else, they might have dismissed it as stinky goo. But Zhao Lijai had lived through the apocalypse before and had encountered many strange creatures after the second rain. At that moment, her face turned pale when she realized what was under her shoes. Without hesitation, she shouted, "Everyone, be careful." The next moment after she spoke, countless black goo shot toward them from the walls. Bangs, bangs, bang. When Zhang Yuan and the Wen brothers heard her warning, they instantly created a barrier to block the attack, but due to the speed of the black goo, they only managed to block some of it. As soon as the black goo touched the members' shoes or clothes, it released an acidic liquid. Feeling the pain on their bodies, the members pulled out their daggers and used them to remove the goo. The burning pain on their skin caused the members to let out painful groans. Seeing this, Zhao Lijai quickly splashed them with water. Using her energy to control the temperature, she heated the water until it bubbled. In her previous life, she had heard about countless mercenary teams who suffered huge casualties during trips to unknown mines. Back then, she had only thought those people were unlucky to have met such troublesome mutants. But now, connecting the information from her past life to their current situation, she was sure that the unknown mine was the one they had entered. Seeing that her attack had minimal effect in removing the goo, Jin Zuyan used his fire to burn it. This time, he managed to reduce the amount of goo, but to completely kill it would take too long enough for the members to lose their lives. While everyone was focused on removing the goo from their bodies, Mo Junji realized that it feared his black mist. Taking advantage of the situation, he took out a glass container from his space necklace and stored some of the black goo before putting it away. After obtaining the sample, he opened his palm. In less than a second, black mist seeped out and flew toward the black goo covering the members' limbs and bodies. When the black mist touched the goo, it let out a sizzling sound. The goo shrank and avoided the mist as if it were being burned. Seeing this, Xirokai said in surprise, "Captain, this thing is suddenly escaping." Jin Zuyin raised his gaze and saw Mo Junji controlling the black mist to surround the goo. After gathering it into one spot, Mo Junji waved his hand and the mist thickened instantly. In less than a minute, the small area was filled with sizzling sounds, and soon after, the black goo had turned into vapor, leaving nothing behind. The members watched in shock. They had always thought Mo Junji was weak and at most had awakened a basic type ability such as heightened hearing or vision. Now, seeing how he controlled the black mist with ease, they realized they had been wrong about him. Which part of him was weak? He was as strong as they were okay. Noticing the members' sharp stares, Mo Junji took out a white handkerchief from his pocket, covered his pale lips and coughed several times before saying, "I forgot to tell everyone. My ability is a mutated ability, poison." The moment they heard this, they were stunned. It took them a while to regain their composure. Feng Yun looked at him and asked, "Brother Mo, your illness, does it have anything to do with your ability?" Hearing this, Mo Junji stiffened for a moment before letting out a chuckle and replying, "You are indeed a very observant person." After a moment of pause, he added, "I used to be very healthy. Only after I awakened my ability did my internal organs start to fail, and I became sick." When everyone heard his words, they finally understood why Jiang Lixin had been unable to cure his sickness permanently. Unless he could remove his ability, he would never fully recover. While the members were having a brief conversation, the metal barrier became covered with a thick layer of mutant goo. Raising his head when Mo said, "Captain, we are trapped here. Even if the barrier can last for several days, we will run out of oxygen soon." Jin Zuyin thought for a moment and turned to Mo Junji as he asked, "Mo Junji, can you take care of all of the black goo?" When he heard this, Mo Junji let out several soft coughs before he replied, "I'm not sure, but I will try my best." Nodding at his words, Jin Zuyin looked at Feng Yun and said, "Feng Yun, use your spatial area and block the tunnel's wall." As soon as he heard this, Feng Yun understood his captain's intention. He nodded at him and replied, "Understood." When Mo turned to the two of them and said, "I will release the barrier after I count to 3. "Okay," Mo Junji and Feng Yun replied in unison. A moment later, when Mo waved his hand, and the metal barrier turned into a tight net, pushing the goo back. Crack, crack, crack. At the same time, Lee Sikai flicked his wrist, and countless lightning bolts flew toward the metal net. The moment the lightning bolts hit the net, they zapped the GUI and stunned it for a moment. Seizing the opportunity, Feng Yun created a spatial barrier around the members to block the GUI from approaching. Unlike the metal barrier, a breeze of wind was still able to flow through his spatial barrier. With flawless cooperation, Mo Junji flicked his fingers, and black mist shot toward the black goo at high speed. As they cooperated, the black goo soon turned into vapor and disappeared completely. When everything was finally over, Wen Kai turned to Qin Luzi and asked, "Old Qin, can you detect this kind of mutant?" Qin Luzi frowned deeply before he replied, "Before it attacks us, I can't detect anything. Only after it moves can I detect it with my map." After they heard this, everyone exchanged solemn gazes. It seemed that this place was more dangerous than they had expected. Recalling the situation in the compound, a thought suddenly flashed in Feng Yun's mind. Although he didn't want to believe his own guess, he still said, "Captain, is it possible that the reason why there are no zombies or survivors in this place is because of this black GUI?" The moment they heard this, everyone felt a chill run down their spines. Compared to the zombies, facing this kind of creature was much harder. Not only were they hard to detect, but they were also highly corrosive and dangerous. The possibility is very high, but now that we are here, we have to continue. If we don't get rid of this danger, it will cause more casualties in the future, Jin Zuyin said. "Before we continue, we should treat the wounds first," Gao Bohai said. Without Jiang Lixin, only Yin Yusheng had a healing ability in their team. Hearing this, he quickly summoned his little sunflower. Feeling its master's intention, the little sunflower appeared at his fingertips and swayed lightly. Tapping its leaf softly, Yin Yusheng asked, "Kui, can you help heal my friend's wounds?" After he said this, the little sunflower flapped its leaves before it detached itself from his finger. As soon as it landed on the ground, it suddenly grew at a rapid speed. In just 10 seconds, the small sunflower had grown into a 1-meter tall sunflower. Staring at the sunflower, Yin Yusheng said in surprise, "Kiwi, you can do this too." The sunflower nodded, and the next moment, countless soft lights shot out from its big head. The lights fluttered in the air, looking similar to dandelion seeds. When the lights landed on the members' wounds, they seeped into their bodies, and soon after, the wounds recovered at a speed clear to the naked eye. While Kiwi healed everyone, Yin Yusheng felt the energy in his body draining at a fast rate. Before he could react, he had already lost half of his energy and felt dizzy. Noticing his pale face, Zhao Lijai quickly handed him a handful of wood-type crystal cores and said, "Brother Yin, quickly absorb the energy." Holding onto the crystal cores, Yin Yusheng sat on the ground and started absorbing the energy. At the same time, Kiwi became more energetic and started to dance while shooting healing light. 10 minutes later, everyone was finally fully recovered. When they turned their heads, they saw Mojunji covered with the lights from head to toe. Compared to others, Kiwi was focused on spitting on him. Even his hair was not spared. Staring at him, Yin Yusheng felt guilty and said, "Brother Mo, I didn't mean to. Are you all right?" Mojunji stood there unmoving as he felt the warm energy entering his body. The pain caused by his collapsed internal organs had disappeared. Closing his eyes, he used his energy to check his condition and found that the light was healing his body. Compared to Zhao Lijai's water, this sunflower was the one that could actually fully heal him. This was a blessing in disguise. Kiwi continued spitting light on him for another 10 minutes before returning to its small size and entering Yin Yusheng's body. After spending so much energy, the little sunflower was tired and went to sleep. Opening his eyes, Mojunji smiled and said, "Brother Yin, thank you for healing my wounds." "It's a small matter," Yin Yusheng replied casually. Everyone thought he was just being polite, but in fact, he was thanking him for freeing him from the pain. Without the constant pain, his face regained some color, and he no longer looked so weak. "All right, let's continue," Jin Zuyin said after everyone had rested for a moment. While the Phantom team members explored the underground mine, in the dark alley of the Yunshan city base, Rong Kinyu stood in front of a man. The man covered his bleeding stomach and glared at him with bloodshot eyes as he asked, "Rong Kinyu, why did you do this?" While the members explored the underground mine, in the dark alley of the Yunshan city base, Rung Kunua stood in front of a man. The man covered his bleeding stomach and glared at him with bloodshot eyes as he said, "Rung Kunua, why did you do this?" Staring up at the man on the ground, Rung Kunua sneered and said coldly, "Why do I do this? It's because you are blocking my mission." Hearing this, the man's eyes widened in shock as realization dawned on him. He said, "Who are you?" "Who I am is not important. Now that you've found out my secret, you can't be left alive," Rung Kunua said as he raised his hand. The next moment, 5 metal needles pierced the man's head, killing him instantly. After he was sure the man was dead, Rung Kunua retrieved the metal needles with a wave of his hand and left the dark alley. 20 minutes later, a little girl finally walked out from behind a pile of trash. She stared at the cold body on the ground with a pale face. After a while, she mustered up her courage and went to check on the body. She searched for a while before she found the wallet and weapons. She looked at the cold body with teary eyes for a moment before whispering, "Brother, I'm sorry for being a coward." After taking one last glance, the little girl ran away from the dark alley and went to the central government area. At noon, a guard went to Feng Zha's office and reported, "Commander, a little girl wants to meet you. She said that she has an important secret to tell you." Hearing this, Feng Zha raised her gaze from the document and said with a frown, "A little girl." After a moment of thought, she said, "Bring her in." The soldier nodded and went out after receiving her order. Not long after, he returned, followed by a little girl. Feng Zha observed the girl and noticed her dirty, unkempt appearance. After a moment, she noticed the weapons the girl held and said, "Little girl, come over." The girl hesitated for a moment before walking over and looking at her timidly. After observing her for a moment, she asked, "Sister, are you Brother Ming's best friend, Sister Feng Zha?" Hearing this, Feng Zha nodded and asked, "Little girl, where did you get this weapon? Was it given by Brother Ming?" When the little girl heard her words, her eyes reddened and she nodded as tears started to fall. Using her dirt-covered hand, she wiped away her tears and said, "Sister, a bad man killed Brother Ming. I tried to wake him up, but he was no longer breathing." The moment she said this, Feng Zha's eyes flickered before she forced herself to calm down. Taking a deep breath, she asked tremblingly, "Little girl, can you bring us to Brother Ming?" The little girl nodded and handed the weapon and blood-stained wallet to her. Staring at the bloodstains, Feng Zhe tightened her grip and followed the little girl. Besides her and the girl, 5 guards followed them. When they arrived at the deserted dark alley, the thick, rusty scent hit their noses. The guards exchanged glances and rushed over. The moment they saw the body on the ground, they exclaimed in shock, "Vice Captain." One of them, a doctor, checked his condition. After a while he shook his head and said, "He is gone." Standing on the side, Feng Zhe clenched her fists tightly, then turned to the little girl squatting beside Brother Ming and asked, "Little girl, did you see who did it?" The little girl turned pale as soon as she heard the question. She nodded, then shook her head while staring at her warily. Noticing her guarded stance, Feng Zhe squatted in front of her and asked again, "Did you see who did it?" The little girl lowered her head as her body trembled in fear. After a long time, she finally raised her head and said, "It's Feng Zhe, what are you doing here?" The moment the little girl heard the voice, her body stiffened and goosebumps covered her arms. Noticing her instinctive reaction, Feng Zhe's heart sank. Recalling Zun Che's warning and the strange behavior her boyfriend displayed after he returned from Lung City last year, an outrageous thought flashed through her mind. Staring into the little girl's fearful eyes, she patted her shoulders and whispered, "Be good, don't say a word." The little girl nodded and lowered her head. She didn't even dare to glance at Reincarnation and continued holding onto Brother Ming's stiff fingers. As he walked toward them, Reincarnation's eyes lingered on the little girl's back for a while before he asked with a smile, "Feng Zhe, who is this girl?" When they heard his question, the guards were stunned. Everyone knew that Brother Ming had a good relationship with Reincarnation, and they often did missions together. Logically speaking, when someone saw his friend was killed, he wouldn't be this calm. He would first ask about what happened to his friend, but Reincarnation was so calm he could even ask about a little girl, as if he already knew about Brother Ming's death. Reaching this conclusion, they stared at him with suspicion. As if noticing his slip of tongue, Reincarnation turned to look at the body and asked with surprise, "Brother Ming, what happened to him?" Hearing this, Feng Zhe finally realized how fake her boyfriend was. She always thought she was a rational person, but when she faced her boyfriend's affections, she became a love-brain fool. She had actually noticed that her boyfriend was different since he came back last year, but she was unwilling to face the truth and tried to fool herself. Now, she could no longer fool herself when facing her friend's cold body. Standing up, she turned toward her boyfriend, and without warning, a thin metal rope flew toward Reincarnation. The next moment, the rope wrapped around him and tied him instantly. Being tied up so suddenly, Reincarnation looked at his girlfriend in shock and asked, "Feng Zhe, what is the meaning of this?" Staring at her boyfriend coldly, Feng Zhe said, "Reincarnation, it's you who killed Brother Ming." "Feng Zhe, you know me. I would never harm my friend, let alone kill him," Reincarnation said with a frown. Shaking her head, Feng Zhe said, "If it were you years ago, I would dare say I knew you. But right now, I no longer know if I should trust you or not." "Feng Zhe, are you doubting me?" Reincarnation asked with a sigh. Feng Zhe stared at him for a long time before she asked, "Are you really Reincarnation?" When he heard her question, Reincarnation suddenly chuckled and said, "Feng Zhe, if I'm not Reincarnation, then who am I?" After he said this, the metal rope tying him suddenly loosened and turned into a metal ball. Holding the ball, he said, "Feng Zhe, don't you know who has been shut up in your bed for so long?" He walked toward her, leaned closer, and whispered, "You have seen every part of my body, yet you still ask who I am. It seems you don't know your boyfriend that well." As soon as she heard this, Feng Zhe's eyes widened in shock. She stared at his side profile and said, "You stab." Before she finished her sentence, Reincarnation stabbed her with a metal dagger and said, "Feng Zhe, it's a pity that I can't taste your body anymore, but I have another mission and can't accompany you in this boring game. Be good and take a rest." The next moment, he pulled out the metal dagger and stabbed her again before pulling it out. When the guards saw the blood staining the dagger and ground, they snapped out of their daze, pulled out their weapons, and rushed toward Reincarnation. "Bastard!" Boom! The guards' attacks were blocked by a metal wall as Reincarnation escaped. Without turning around, he said, "Tell Zun Che it will be his turn next." When the guards leaped over the metal wall, they saw Feng Zhe lying on the ground, covered in blood. The little girl was sobbing while pressing on the wounds. She stared at the guards and said, "Sister is dying." Without wasting time, a guard quickly carried Feng Zhe to the infirmary, and soon she was sent to the operating room. While her life and death were unknown, Zun Che received a report from the guards. Commander, a high-level zombie, appeared in the childcare area. The moment he heard this, Zuncha stood up and said, "Evacuate the children and the survivors. Send guards to surround the zombie. Don't let it leave the area." Understood. After hanging up the call, Zuncha rushed to the childcare area in the third ring. Boom! When he arrived, the sound of battle was heard as thick clouds of dust obstructed his vision. Seeing this, he leaped to the rooftop of a nearby building to have a clear look. Inside the ring of cloud dust, a zombie with the body of an infant, but the limbs and head of a locust, was spitting out a fireball at the guards. Boom! Before the fireball managed to hit the guards, 2 fireballs flew from the side and collided with it in mud. The moment the fireballs exploded, Rungma glanced at the man standing on the opposite side and nodded. Seeing this, Wang Jai nodded back at her before he turned to his team leader and asked, "Sister Wei, this zombie is too strong. We can't win against it. What should we do now?" Sister Wei looked around for a moment and said, "The children and survivors are still here. We have to hold it back while they evacuate." Not long after she finished, a young man rushed toward the zombie holding a dagger in both hands. When he was near, the zombie suddenly opened its mouth and spat a huge fireball toward him. Seeing the incoming attack, Giant Zikin narrowed his eyes but didn't dodge. Boom! When everyone thought he would be injured by the attack, the fireball exploded 2 meters before it hit him. As if blocked by a transparent barrier, the explosion force didn't injure him at all. Roar! The zombie let out an angry roar and swung its foreleg, covered with countless sharp, glistening blades, aiming at Giant Zikin's head. Clang! Using both daggers, Giant Zikin managed to block the attack. Noticing the zombie's mouth opening again, he stepped on the zombie's foreleg and leaped into the air. As he flipped in midair, a shadow figure appeared behind him. The shadow crossed its hands in front of his chest. The next moment, Giant Zikin stepped on the figure's hands and used the force to increase his speed. Crack, crack! As his speed increased, he managed to stab his daggers into the back of the zombie's head. Roar! The zombie let out a roar as it swung its forelegs at his back. Duag! Giant Zikin let go of the daggers as he barely managed to dodge the attack. Although he wasn't hit in vital points, his chest was still struck, and he was sent flying, falling to the ground with a loud thud. Everything happened in less than a minute. When Zun Qi arrived on the nearest building's rooftop, he saw the young man coughing blood while the zombie dashed toward him. Standing 20 meters away from the battle scene, he narrowed his eyes. Soon after, the zombie suddenly stiffened and stopped moving. Seizing the opportunity, Lin Fei rushed over and swung his large sword, similar to the double-handed swords used by berserkers in most games. Crack! Thanks to Giant Zikin's earlier attack, the daggers stuck in the zombie's neck pierced through the hard shells, allowing Lin Fei to behead the zombie with one smooth motion. Crash! The zombie's head fell to the ground as black blood spurted like a fountain, staining the ground as the thick, rancid scent filled the air. After Lin Fei split the zombie's head and took out the crystal core, everyone cheered in joy. On top of the rooftop, Zun Qi's body swayed and his face turned pale. He was only a level 1 psychic ability user. For him to control, a level 3 zombie was pushing him to the limit. Feeling the severe headache, he lay on the ground for 10 minutes before he felt better. Before leaving the area, he glanced at Giant Zikin and Lin Fei with a meaningful gaze. When others chose to hide or escape, they rushed to the front line to fight the zombie. Their courage was extraordinary. They would be a great help to the base if they were willing to join the guards. Not long after, Wen Hanley arrived with a group of doctors and guards. As they checked the injured survivors, Wen Hanley walked over to Lin Fei and Giant Zikin. Standing in front of them, he asked, "Are both of you interested in joining the guards?" When the people around them heard his offer, everyone looked at them with envy. It was hard to join the guards since one had to pass many tests and go through the training camp first. While everyone thought that they would agree, Giant Zikin said, "Thank you for your offer, Vice Commander, but I have no intention of working as a guard." When Hanley nodded and said, "Well, it's a pity that you are unwilling. If you change your mind, you can look for me or go to the administrative building to register directly." Giant Zikin nodded and replied, "All right." After he left, Lin Fei nudged him and asked, "Zikin, why didn't you agree to join the guards? I heard that the guards not only receive a monthly salary and rations, but the base also provides housing." Giant Zikin walked to his sister and replied, "I don't like being controlled by others." Hearing her brother's words, Jian Huan shook her head and said nothing. No one knew better than her that her brother refused the offer because he was worried about her. She was a space-type ability user, but she didn't have space storage. When they applied to join mercenary teams, no one was willing to accept her. The reason was simple. No one had ever seen a space-type ability user with attack skills. Therefore, they deemed her useless. Even if they were interested in her brother's shadow skill and Lin Fei's strength, they still ended up rejecting them because of her. Because of this, the three of them hadn't joined any team up to now. It wasn't that they were unwilling to create a team, but they needed at least 2 more members to meet the requirement. Since the guards had taken control of the situation, the 3 of them left the area after finishing the inspections. Not long after they left the childcare area, a pair of young adults blocked their path. Staring at the man, Jian Huan smiled and asked, "Comrade, the path is wide. Why are you blocking our way?" Standing a few meters from them, the man smiled and replied, "Comrade, my name is Gu Sheoz, and this is my girlfriend, Rongmo." After a short pause, he continued, "I watched your team's battle against that zombie, and I want to invite the 3 of you to join my team." When they heard his name, Jian Huan exchanged glances with her brother and Lin Fei. They had heard a lot about this person and his girlfriend. The 2 of them often distributed water to newcomer survivors at the base entrance. "From what I know, you should be a member of the Phantom Team. Are you inviting us on behalf of your captain to join the Phantom Team?" Jian Huan asked. Speaking of the Phantom Team, she still recalled the tall, handsome man who had saved her brother's life. Although he was aloof and looked indifferent, he was the only one who put his life at risk and came to their rescue. Thinking about how he stood in Medea like an immortal, Jian Huan felt her heart skip a beat. Unaware of her hidden crush, Gu Sheoz shook his head and said, "We are no longer members of the Phantom Team, but we have a good relationship with them. Even though my team isn't as strong as the Phantom Team, it's still a B-rank team." Jian Huan felt disappointed when she learned that he wasn't in the Phantom Team, but her disappointment was fleeting. After she considered the pros and cons, she turned to her brother and asked, "Chin Lin Fei, what do you think?" Without a team, they couldn't take on high-ranking missions, even if they were capable of completing them. After discussing it for a moment, they finally made up their minds. Looking at Gu Sheoz, Jian Huan said, "Before we join your team, we want to know how you split the points and supplies." "Right now, my team has a total of 11 members, with 9 of them being children. 6 of the children are ability users. We usually split the points depending on contribution during the mission. As for the supplies we find outside, we divide them evenly," Gu Sheoz explained. When they heard his words, they were taken aback. They never expected that a B-rank mercenary team would actually have only 2 adults. But even though there were 9 children, they had still managed to reach B-rank in such a short time, proving that the children weren't weaker than adults. After a while, Jian Huan finally said, "We agree to join your team." Hearing this, Gu Sheoz smiled and said, "Great. While we're at it, let's register your names in our team first." They understood that the other party might have already taken a mission and were eager to recruit new members. Since they had already agreed to join him, there was no need to delay the matter. So they went to the administrative hall to complete the procedure. At the same time, Zun Qi received an emergency call from Yunchen City base. The moment he heard the report, he stood up abruptly from his chair and exclaimed, "What did you say?" Thanks for watching. Please sub and like the video and comment down if anything wrong in the story.